minutes, I will post it to the YouTube channel. And there is a flow beginning to form for me to get this out. So hopefully this will be out sometime next week. All right, on to today's session. I don't think maybe David needs a more detailed introduction to the Danish audience at least. He's a very active speaker, and not only in Denmark, but all across Europe. Maybe one of the most active Danish MVPs that I know, and is talking about in categories. If we take development tools surrounding Power BI, self-service, and then some governance documentation, as we are going to hear about today. Perhaps you have an intro slide for yourself, David, that can tell more in detail where you're from and who you work for and what your interests are and so on. But for the next 50-ish minutes, David will be talking about Power BI documentation. I will be going off camera. We'll stay on the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. I will answer the ones that I can answer. And then we will summarize some that I can't answer. And there will be some that I can't answer for David to answer those either during the session or at the end of the session. So David, please take over the screen and begin your introduction. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that introduction, Jens. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. So yeah, happy to see so many interested in hearing a bit about documentation. So documentation is a passion of mine, and I will try to do my best to make it as fun as possible. I have this hashtag on LinkedIn, documentation can be fun. I know it's a stretch, but we'll see whether I can achieve that or not. A little bit about me, David Kofod Hanna. I'm from Denmark, been a consultant for the past 10 years, and I worked in the academy department in 2D. I've been primarily focused on delivering teaching for Power BI, Fabric, and Tabular Editor, and now even Databricks for the data analysts. But I'm really passionate about guiding self-service developers in Power BI to create more governed and robust and also documented solutions. Because I see so many ad hoc or self-service projects that are really delivering high value, but could really learn something from the enterprise segments. So I'm like the bridge between the self-service and the enterprise and guiding some things there. And yes, Kofod is from Bornholm, the Sunshine Islands, but I live in Jylland in Silkeborg with wives and kids. Also Microsoft MVP, awarded that November last year. So really thankful for that, because it really also opens up a lot of opportunities for speaking like this or also other conferences. All right, so I would like you to find the React button here in Teams, like the heart or thumbs up or something like that, because I will here on the blue screen of death, hopefully not your documented solution there, but there will come some statements. And if you feel that you agree with that statement, then use a thumbs up or a heart or whatever you feel like. All right, so who loves documentation? Anyone? A heart? Thumbs up? Some laughs? Okay. Again, only if you agree with the statements. And I know that not that many actually loves documentation, but I saw a heart or two, so perfect to see. So who writes documentation? And give a React button there. Okay, I see a bit more thumbs up there. All right. Who updates documentation? Yeah, oh, okay. Oh, it's coming, yeah. So who reads the documentation? Oh, yeah, okay. Also a good mix. Who can find the documentation? So if you can read it, you most likely also can find it. But yeah, some are laughing. I get the point. Perfect. So even if you then can find it and read it, who can understand the documentation? Who think LLMs and AI agents will do this for you? Okay, yeah. So I saw some laughter, I saw some love, I saw some thumb ups, but there are really something about documentation, and we really have seen it on our own, or heard stories about it. And being a consultant, you often see a variety of different solutions with handovers and so forth. And true story, a couple of years back, a company asked me, David, you must know a tool or something that can help us, because there is this person who have been building this business critical Power BI project, but now he left the company. And with the handover, there were no documentation. And when we open up the Power BI desktop, that person had created 175 bookmarks. I don't know about you, but that is just a nightmare. It could also be, I have delivered teachings with Power BI for the self-service users. And I was told by IT that they have created a very user-friendly and easy to understand semantic model. But once they then connected live to that semantic model, 200 tables, 1,000 measures, and 40 different date dimensions. I don't know about you, but that would be terrifying for many self-service users. Also because there were no perspectives, because there should only be some of the fact tables or dimension they were interested in. So good to see great depth of analysis, but thinking on the user, it was too overwhelming. And I don't know about you, but there are many I hear they would like to have the goal of proper documented solutions, but I don't see it in reality. So there is this quote from a book I highly recommend, Atomic Habits by James Clear. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. We have a goal, maybe, but what are the habits, the atomic habits, or the small practices, or the trainings, or what you include in the processes every day, every week, every month, that will be part of your system, so you accumulate small habits over time that will have a good, large impact on, for example, documentation. And yes, you can apply that for many other things in your life, so highly recommend that. But what is the system for documentation in Power BI? Well, I like boxes. I like folders. I like to be organized and check boxes. I have 24 boxes here, and I already have many more boxes. And I don't have time at all to go through them all. So I will select some of them to show you during this session, but many of the things will have scripts or guides that are already published on my LinkedIn or GitHub. So it is from model to app. So it is from the Power Query to semantic model, Power BI desktop, and to app. It could also be interesting to look on the data warehouse, data platform, or Databricks, but that is not the four right here for now. So some of them are manual. These are the black boxes. And then we have the gray, which can be automated, or where I have a C# script or DAX query or notebook or something like that. And then I have the dotted lines that requires a fabric capacity. All right, so what is it? So for Power Query, it could be simple query folders. We need to rename the applied steps or add properties. We can even add table properties. It's quite manual, but we can do that. But we could have a script with adding parameters for easy switch between databases or Excel workbooks or servers that you're connecting to, or adding some components like the measure table, when was it last refreshed, or formatting the Power Query. On the semantic model, it could also be formatting DAX, adding measure descriptions, running best practice analyzer, using the INFO.VIEW DAX functions to get auto-updated DAX KPI library, adding display folders for measures or columns, and so forth. And the list goes on. So there are many of these boxes. And again, some are automated with a script or a notebook, but the black boxes are manual at the moment. I will focus on a few of them, which I really are passionate about at the moment. And again, everything is available on my GitHub, so you can find that as well to try to copy-paste some of these solutions to your own project. And yeah, so quite a few different scripts and so forth. The slides will also be available there. I don't know whether, we'll see whether I can add it in the chat later on, but I'll just search on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, let's see if I can have a bit more on documentation can be fun for you as well. So simple start, one of the manual blocks. Sometimes when you have, I think it's above 100 tables in your semantic model, when going into the model view, it will say, showing all tables may cause slowdowns. So you can then create a custom layout, or if you then dare click show all tables, you'll just get this spider web of so many tables and so forth. Again, the purpose is, for example, when connecting live to your semantic model, you're only interested in maybe some of the fact tables or some of the dimensions. So what I would teach, especially live connecting report developers, create your own model view so you can see what you're interested in. So let's try to do that. So in this role, I will go into the model view, and we have this, not that many tables, but we have a spider web and can be actually a bit tricky to see what is related and so forth. And I know you can adjust the layout here, but what I would do is add a new layout, and I would add it one per fact table. So let me add my orders. So now I have this great canvas, and over to the right, I can then find my fact view orders, drag and drop it into here. Then I can right click this table, and then we have this add related tables. That should give me all my dimension tables. And then we have this spider web here as well. Then we can right click again on the gray canvas and then say collapse all. This will only show me the columns used for relationship. Going into the model view, I'm not interested in seeing all the available columns. I'm interested in seeing what is related to each other. And I know for understanding purposes and my go-to practice and only layout, not for performance or anything, I really like to have my dimensions up in the top and then have this view like my dimension tables is like my slicers. My slicers are in the top, and when I filter on one of my slicers or dimensions, it will then follow the filter propagation down to my fact table below. So that is my recommendation here, and I would create one model view per fact table, and then I would have one final layout view for all my disconnected tables, field parameters, calculation groups, measure groups, or what it might be. I think it's much better and easier to see compared to looking on this. But again, it is one of the manual processes. A question on why the view customer has two visible columns in collapsed state. That is due to there is a snowflake. So that's why. Or using another one to another fact table. So that is the reason. So again, a self-service solution here. All right, heading back here, I have seen so many create display folders for measures, which I'm a huge fan of, especially if you then have hundreds or even thousands of measures. But what you can also do, you can actually also bring your columns into display folders. It's not often you will see all the columns when going into report view. For example, it's a good practice to hide all the columns on your fact table and then build measures on top of that and so forth. But even then going into debug mode or controlling or seeing what's related, we can even add display folders for all our key columns or based on the format of the column, whether it's attribute, date, flag, numeric. You can do this manual, but this is one of the ways where you can add a script. I love Tabular Editor. I'm also a bit biased because I know Tabular Editor has a great history and partnership with Today and so forth. I will show you the edition where I use Tabular Editor 3, which I'm thankful to have that license, but you can run this script in Tabular Editor 2 as well, so no worries. All right, so let's try to connect this semantic model to a Tabular Editor 3 just as an external tool. And I have plenty of C# scripts, grabbing them from Kurt Buehler and the Tabular Editor community, and even try to build some of my own. I'm not using my skills, but the AI skills to do that, of course. All right, so we have now connected with this semantic model to Tabular Editor. And I would like to have that all my columns have display folders, and it should be done based on a script. All my key columns should be in the key folder, attribute, dates, and flag, and so forth. I have the macros down here where I have quite a few scripts. Let's just find one of them here with the display folders for columns. I did not write this myself. Again, it's the community on Tabular Editor who have all that on their website and so forth. But we can actually just run this scripts But again, before you run, always trust the author and so forth. But there's actually a new feature, run with preview, that I'm a big fan of. So running this with preview, I can also get like a git compare look and feel on what is actually being changed. And I can then see that it is the columns, and it's actually within the columns that there is this property display folder. So I can see the state column is on the key and so forth. So I will click OK, I trust this. And now you can see that I have placed these columns into these two display folders. And yeah, and also for the facts, I should have some more keys and even measures or numeric and so forth. So I was not need to select something specific in the Tom Explorer, so it's like a generic script. And if you're not happy about the specific formats of the display folders or the level of detail, you could definitely just adjust that. All right. So also thinking on, now that we have Tabular Editor open, there's something about this naming convention. I do get the interest on what is a dim or what is a fact table, but I really don't like it to be part of the table name. Again, with the thinking on the user in mind, the self-service or the business analyst or the data analyst. So again, I'll show later on, maybe we could have a tool that will help us on just changing the table or measure names, which can be quite scary to do when you already have published the model and been building a lot of live connected reports on. But I have some scripts here on removing the prefix of fact of dim or f or d or what it might be. I can simply click run, and now I have renamed that. But again, there are huge consequences if you just do this in a already published semantic model. And then I would like to have proper case instead of camel case. So I also have that one, and let's run that. And now we can see I have this. But what is then a fact table? Was it then a dimension table? This is, however, a Tabular Editor 3 specific feature. I will show you a workaround we can do in Power BI to get that. But I have table groups. Table groups is using annotations, looking on specific properties, whether that table is a calculation group, measure group, fact, and so forth. So if I click run here, you can see that in this semantic model, I only have facts or dimension tables, but it could also have with calculation groups, field parameters, and so forth. All right, let's save that, and that will then be saved back to the semantic model. So this was an example of, we could, for example, use Tabular Editor, either Tabular Editor 2 or Tabular Editor 3, with the C# scripting capability that will give us a consistent output based on this input. So that is always recommended if we can do that, compared to just opening up for the world on using LLMs that can have this non-deterministic behavior. The big word I learned last year, non-deterministic. All right, so is there a way that we could have that table group into Power BI Desktop then? Well, opening up the model view, we will just see the Tom Explorer like over to the left that we have different tables. But we can actually use INFO.VIEW DAX functions to go in and create our own calculation that will then give us that metadata. I will open up another file where this is prepared. So I have this table group. I have this semantic model over here, quite similar to what I just showed, but there are more tables there. So I am using this DAX query where I am creating a lot of unions to check whether it is a field parameter, numeric parameter, calculation group, model documentation, fact table, dimension tables, and it's just union it all together. This will then give me a table I can use in my reports, so I can see what table is part of this group. So these two are calculation groups, these are dimension tables, and so forth. So I will try to add then a field parameter, which is a great feature. Some of the features that can be called the bookmark killer that really have removed a lot of bookmarks for some of my reports. And let us have just these two. So creating this, we should then instantly see that this DAX calculated table is also being updated, and now you can see that this new field parameter is also part of that query, and we'll be able to see that. So this will update as we update our semantic model with new tables and so forth, so we can get that technical overview in the report, which is also then part of the semantic model and so forth. All right. Yeah, Jens, go ahead.
Maybe there's a question you want to answer right now, because it seems
so this DAX query shows the table group that were created in Tabular Editor 3. The table group, this is not created in Tabular Editor. This is my own way to try to bring that Tabular Editor 3 feature into Power BI Desktop. The Tabular Editor are using annotations that will bring that into the UI. I will just use DAX tables and DAX queries and INFO.VIEW functions to then mingle together into just a simple table with DAX. Let me try to scroll down. There is 2, it's in the bottom here. So it's just a very simple table with 4 columns there, but based on this 156 lines of DAX. So this DAX query, it is on my GitHub as well. And it should be generic, because I'm searching for generic components that you would have. All right, the next one, DAX queries. So I could, of course, use that as part of the DAX query, but then I would be forced to see that table output in the DAX query view. I would highly recommend, if you would like to become better in DAX, you really need to master how to create table expressions, which you also then will iterate in measures and so forth. DAX Query View is really a great tool that will force you to have a table as an output. But what you can use here is many more options. We have up to, I think it's 70, not 17, but 70 DAX info functions. We have the INFO.VIEW DAX functions with measures, relationships, columns, and tables, which is great. I will show that in a minute. But DAX Query View here, we have many more options on info functions. It could go in and test, do we have calculated tables or calculated columns? Do you have many-to-many relationships, and how many? Do we have auto date time available here? Do we have any partitions? We could also go in and check what is the VertiPaq memory size, or VertiPaq memory size based on columns or tables, what you would normally do in DAX Studio. So all these DAX queries are generic, and we can utilize that. And what I'm going to show now is a huge credit out to Hahiraran Hayindran. Hope I pronounced that correctly, but he have all these on his GitHub, where I'll just link to that as well, so you can grab those DAX query views. Let's try to run some of them. So in this system, I have DAX query view over here, and we will then see how many local date tables do we have? 0, good. Do you have many relationships? 1 and 1 bidirectional relationships. Ooh, not that good. We could also then have a VertiPaq table, for example. If I run this, it will then show me the table names, the cardinality. So how many rows do we have on this table? The total size, and then the dB percentage, and so forth. And I could copy paste that and go over to my raw state here, and then copy paste that in and click run. And I will see that for this table here as well. And if I then rename this to DAX memory. All right, so these DAX queries are generic, and we could have that part of any semantic model, that we could have some checks before we publish it, or if we would, being a consultant, sometimes you would like to have a quick overview on the state, how professional is this semantic model, how many issues could there potentially be, and you're not allowed to use external tools. Well, you could use this. It sounds very copy-paste-ish, yes, but if you are then converting into a PBIP, we can actually see a DAX queries folder, and we then have all these DAX query files per DAX query. And we could actually just copy paste that. So let me try to copy paste some of these DAX queries. So I just have a few here, copy, and then in the PBIP, within the semantic model, we have this DAX queries folder, and I'll just need to click save here and copy that in here. I need to then close the Power BI desktop and then open up again. I hope that limitation will soon be lifted as this developer mode goes GA, hopefully in 2026. All right, so before we test that, whether that works, I have something I'm really excited about. It's the INFO.VIEW DAX functions. I really hope that many of you already have been investigating and exploring these. If you haven't heard about this, I will say this is one of the key takeaways that you definitely need to try this out. If you're interested in getting descriptions on your measures, tables, relationships, columns, and also how it's been defined, or to update it, but also bringing that into the semantic model, so any live connecting report developer can see that. We can then use this DAX table that will then give us a union of these 4 DAX INFO.VIEW functions. How will it look once it's done? Well, it will look something similar to this. So a simple table where I'll just have all the information on whether it's a measure, table, column, or relationship. And for example, I have search here on net invoice. So now I can see all the measures that have something in the expression with net invoice. If I remove that, I will be able to see all my global measures, not just the description, but also the expression. And once I create a new measure, I will be able to see that. So let me just try to create a new measure. Always interesting to see. So hello measure, hello Power BI. And if I search hello, we have it right here. So it instantly updates. So whenever you change something in your semantic model, this table will be refreshed. Because that table is part of the semantic model, it will also be available for the technical report developers who would like to find out how was this measure calculated, or do we have any properties on the tables? Which sources were they coming from, and so forth. And the semantic model developer would like to have a script or something like that they need to remember to run. This is auto-updated. So I just think this is amazing. So this table and this report page is like a component I would like to have in any report. And I could then hide that again for the technical report developer. Again, working with the PPIP, I have just a template file, which is the DAX for that specific table. And then I have a folder with 20 random text and numbers that represents a page in my report. And within that, there are some files and so forth. And again, one of the best skills I have curated over years, it is the copy paste. And I hope you have been practicing that as well. So if I go back here, then I have the template. I will then find my definition and tables, and then I'll just copy paste that model documentation into the template folder there. Then I have this, which will be a folder for my report page. Then I need to go into the .report and definition and pages and just copy paste in. And it will automatically detect that there are a new page added in and so forth. All right, let's test it out. Again, live demo, always interesting to see whether it works. So the limitation at this moment is I need to close it down, unfortunately, and then I need to open it up again. So let me open it up and fingers crossed. So if it works, I would then see a small, you need to refresh this table because you added something that needs to be recalculated because this is a DAX calculated table. And I should also see a new report page named model docs something. So fingers crossed. If it not works, I have a recording I can send afterwards. We'll see. Waiting on the very fast Power BI desktop to open.
Almost like there's a hidden commercial here, right?
Sorry?
Almost like there's a hidden commercial.
Oh yeah, hidden commercial break. Yeah, 2-day cup. Yes, okay, I didn't know about that.
But the loading time for Power BI desktop versus some other tools that you could use.
Awesome. All right, this looks promising. One or more calculated tables need to be manually refreshed. That is the model documentation. Clicking refresh now will then run the DAX query, and I can then see the model docs. And now I have copy pasted this component with the table, but also this report page with this text box, with this table with this slicer and with this also a slicer and the clear all slicers button there. So I can then search on measure. This is all my measures. I see the expression. I see many of them is not being described. So I would need to do that as well. So this would auto update as I change anything there. I think that is just crazy good. But I will not stop here because this is just one semantic model, right? What if we have multiple semantic models? Yes, I have covered that as well. So what I have been doing here, and this requires Fabric because we need to have a notebook. I have created a notebook where we can, for example, just evaluate a simple info.view measures, no input required, and I will loop that DAX query on every semantic model, for example, in my workspace. Or if you dare, the entire tenant, but it can take a while. But I have adjusted it, you can do it just for a single workspace. But that is just an output in a data frame. But what we can do is actually save that output into a lakehouse. And then it's just like a SQL database. You can open up your semantic model and connect to that lakehouse table. And then you just have an auto-updated KPI or whatever you would like to have as a DAX query to then loop over. And you can loop that every night or every week, every month. You can have snapshots, history if you prefer. But an example here, it will have the name, table, description, expression, display folder, then also the workspace, the semantic model, and then also the timestamp. And again, this is all generic, so you can just copy paste. The notebook is on my GitHub, but again, this requires Fabric in order to run this. But I think that is that KPI library dictionary I have been asked for many clients to try to create. It was only updated or relevant once it was published and never updated, but this is just updating itself. So if you haven't tried info.view DAX function or anything, I would highly recommend go and check this out. I think it is, fun. What you can also do with notebooks is, for example, using mermaid diagrams. So, okay, we got that information in a report, but what if we would like to have a technical overview or documentation in a notebook? You can see the measure dependency or just the simple plot of relationships. And what if my semantic model, is that ready for AI? Well, someone from Microsoft, let me see, Sumho Farhan, created a C# script or a notebook that you can run to scan your semantic model, whether it's ready for AI. And you can also say, is it ready for human beings? Because many of the things is actually concerned about, is it star schema? Are you using descriptions? Do you have implicit measures? Do you have anything other not good practice for a semantic model? But especially with the synonyms, the culture and the description is, of course, very relevant for the AI. But then you can get a score, which really gives you some input. And there's actually also some scripts that could help you with some of these things as well. I will not show it, but go check it out on his LinkedIn or on the GitHub. Another thing you could also be interested in is, for example, if you are fancy about the new updates on the core visuals and the report theme that the Power BI are pushing out, if you convert that to PPAP, you get the JSON file, and they have really been creative with a lot of style presets. So now there is actually a JSON file in the report theme with over 4,000 lines. I have created a solution, I actually did that last year, that is actually just connecting to this JSON file, open it up into multiple facts and dimension tables, and then you have a Power BI report on top of your JSON file. So you can see what theme colors, what KPI colors, what visual styles or style presets do we specify. And it's a great resource and also available so you can see what is Microsoft pushing out. So you can do a comparative with your version and their version or their different schemas. So again, just a very nerdy way to document and present what do we actually have in this report theme. Also custom icons or these visual styles. And you can even go down to what properties are there and so on. And again, it is just a simple Power BI desktop file where there is a parameter you need to change, where you just need to update the path to your specific JSON file. And you will have this overview in a Power BI report and so forth. So again, very generic, but a bit more nerdy on the data storytelling part. And also, I've been investigating a lot with AI and LLMs, and it is so addictive. And there are so many great use cases, and it also looked like you, Jens, have created an overview with HTML or something like that. It looked very AI-ish, but a great overview. I have tried to share my GitHub for several people, but many self-service developers in Power BI actually don't know and use GitHub. So I tried to create like my own overview in HTML that you can also just share, which will just show, well, all my different macro actions. I have 45 C# scripts. I could click in here and I will be able to search, for example, on table group. Here I have my C# script on create table group. I have even posted a small screenshot from my slide deck. And then I have the C# script itself, where there is this copy C# script. I can copy, open up Tabular Editor and run. It could also be for specific best practice analyzer rules. It could be for specific DAX queries that you can also view and copy paste. It could also be for some of the notebooks with a measure maze dependency and looping over your INFO.VIEW, and even skills for AI, and even my LinkedIn articles, and so on and so on. It's so fun and so addictive. This is not published yet. I don't know whether I'm going to do it or not, but definitely fun for me. And there are so many more use cases we could bring into with the AI and LLMs. And I will have some few thoughts on that as well, because there is a change in developments for the tools needed for Power BI developers. Last year, my proficiency in Git and Visual Studio Code was very low, but I have really tried to challenge myself to try to learn it. And that I'm so thankful what I did there, because if you are interested in using AI LLMs, you definitely need to work with, for example, Git and Visual Studio Code, and also in the PBIP format. For example, all the things I have been creating here in this row, I have actually been tracking that in Visual Studio Code. So with the PBIP, you can actually see, for example, the page here, what was untracked, which is a new file, and already existing that was modified and so forth. So I will be able to get that transparency. You could also call that part of documentation, that, okay, why did we develop this? And which files did we actually include in that save or that commit and so forth? That will also be key in documenting a solution also in Power BI. So I highly recommend that. And as soon as you then learn that and try to do this manually, and if you then have, for example, a GitHub Copilot license, we just have the chat available right here, which you can ask to connect to this PBIP, go in and make it AI ready, or go in and create model layout views per fact table. So any manual thing especially, I would try to get the AI or LLM to do that, but everything I have a script, I would still use that due to its token free, so to say, but also deterministic. But especially for the things that are manual, that could be really interesting using AI and LLMs. So maybe that's also the question brings to mind, that AI, can you please write my documentation? Again, there are multiple blocks here. Again, all the black, the manual things, those are the ones I would highly recommend that we could try to use, for example, GitHub Copilot with the Power BI modeling MCP server in agent mode and PBIP. And I can definitely say that it is going to boost and change something, but you definitely need to have Git in order to control what the agent is actually working with, or adding or deleting or modifying. But there are always still some things that are be manual. But again, to make it so automated or guided as possible, I think that will be the key. But yeah, I can highly recommend testing out this agentic Power BI developments. I have also some LinkedIn articles that will guide you what you need to install, what licenses you need to have, so you can almost use it like an external tool, almost like Tabular Editor, but the LLM here will connect to your semantic model or report, understand the PBIP, the report, and semantic models, and will then be able to change that. But of course, that needs skills, which are also a new thing, just 6 months old or something like that in the AI LLM world and so forth. So there are many new things, but I can highly recommend that. All right, I will need to close off. But many of the things we would see is related to the semantic model or the temple, where as a report developer, I feel excluded a bit. So the PBIR or the Power BI report enhanced formats. So what you can do is create your own custom agents with your own instructions, with your own skills. For example, I gave a lot of my instructions on documenting a solution or adding model layout views. So you can actually then use the Power BI report agent I have added there. And I could then in the chat say, in the PBIP folder that you have connected to, please organize the diagram layout view as instructed. So my instruction. So it will actually do this for me in the first go and also multiple times. It could also be, please rename all my slicer, or button to something meaningful and group it together. Especially helpful if you're using bookmarks, or renaming or adding query folders to your Power Query if you use that, and many things and many things. Oh yeah, and there's also this tool, Kurt Buehler, definitely check him out, but I will warn you, you will get a little bit stressed, try to following him and all his content, but definitely very interesting to see. So the thing I did before, just renaming tables and measures, it will give this some things wrong with this. He has built a tool that could go in and using AI LLMs connecting to the PBIP and say, let's rename that for you. I've been building a tool, not available yet, but you could just connect this HTML to this PBIP workspace, and you would actually be able to get highlights on where is this measure used, what is the lineage from source to the measure, and on which reports and on which pages and on which visuals are this measure used. You can then export that in JSON and put it into an input to the LLM to say, I'm planning to rename this measure or this table. Here are the dependencies. Now go in and fix it all. Should you do that just right tomorrow? Maybe not, but there are really many manual processes I have seen also consultants try to do because there was just a new director came in. We needed to rename things. Okay, we have many semantic models. We have many reports. This is a manual thing. This could be LLMs that could do that and help you boost you with that. It could also be even creating your own custom visuals because I think there's too many options and drop downs or limitations in the card visual. I built one myself. Or you can add something more generic with adding a custom visual for your model relationships that could be part of the report canvas. So the options are endless. So it's not just Power BI Desktop anymore. If you would like to be a more advanced Power BI developer, you definitely need to also look on Git, Visual Studio Code, and how you can guide a GitHub Copilot or any other LLMs to help you in the development, or maybe use Tabular Editor or notebooks and Fabric and so forth. All right, there was a lot to cover and there are so many more things, but again, you do not rise to the level of your goal. You need to have a system in place. So what is your system? What is your processes? What are your scripts and what are your guides? And how are you going to use not just colleagues to have a consistent development, but how are you going to use AI and LLMs to also have that part of your system? So exciting times that we are living in. So if you are interested in trying some of these scripts or anything like that, go into my GitHub, try to copy paste and download and try it out. And let me know if there should be any updates or anything.
All right. Thank you for that. There are no further questions in the chat at the moment, but I've been thinking about a couple of questions that I would like for you to answer. The first one would be, given your extensive knowledge on documentation, is there any anti-pattern that you would highlight on documentation?
So what I typically see in solutions that would be a problem for documentation or behavior, or could you explain that a bit more?
So
the anti-pattern?
developers thinking they would document a model, but the information that they produce is really not helpful.
One thing, especially with the AI, you would quite quickly, if you have all these things, let your AI or LLM document your solution, and then you will have this chat with your data experience, and then it's just AI or LLMs chatting with other AI or LLMs. So if I see that every table or measure or column are being documented in the description, well, I would definitely go in and check, is that AI LLMs that actually did that? Is it better than 0% documentation? Yes, most likely. But would it be actually an answer pattern? It is a recommendation by Microsoft that, especially with the chat with your data experience, using that, you need to be very explicit and use the right synonyms and the right descriptions for the most impactful, for example, measures or tables. Giving that responsibility over to AI LLMs, well, you definitely need to validate what that is bringing up. I would see that is a big threat or consideration at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. So we can take a segue into the next question, because when you are an experienced Power BI developer and we see people leave teams, leave companies, and move on to another career opportunity and stuff like that. How do you get the information from what's inside their head into any documentation? What's your first move, either when you see an undocumented Power BI model, or when you have that opportunity to actually, harvest any knowledge that they may reside?
Oh yeah, these are some of the tools I just showed on some of the slides. For example, with the lineage there on the bit dependency, I would try to, hopefully with still him being in the company, try and use that tool, and then I would have AI to give an overview with warnings or anything like that. For example, okay, how many bookmarks do we have? Is there something that we need to have him then describe? So have like a tool that can quickly give an overview of, these are some warnings, like a Power BI report best practice analyzer. It is in place where you can, for example, use Semantic Link Labs, but it is not that easy to use. So I'm thinking on building a tool. But else, I would always try to open up the selection pane in Power BI Desktop. That really uncovers many things with the hidden objects, the naming convention, and also with the bookmarks. But of course, there are many things you could dive into.
All right. Yeah, I think that concludes my question, at least. Or maybe what's the first thing you do when you get a blank Power BI model in terms of documentation? What's your first move?
My first thing would actually try to go into the model layout view to understand how many fact tables do I have, what is connected, to see also do I have any many-to-many relationships or anything that. So I would try to understand the semantic model and the foundation on star schema, because that really tells me if there is a good foundation there. Hopefully there's also some other good practices. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see no other questions in the chat, so I guess that concludes the session for today. Thank you, David, for taking us through Power BI documentation in I think, every angle possible. Very precise and very calm and collected as always. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time with us.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure. And again, if anyone would like to try something out, connect with me on LinkedIn or go on to my GitHub, and I will happily help. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.